John, tomorrow the Scots go to the polls to vote for or against independence. There's been a lot of debate about what this might mean for all different parts of the Scottish economy, but the banks is one of the central issues here. And what do you think might happen to the Scottish banking system in the event of a yes vote?
Well, the SNP, in the event of a yes vote, really just wants to carry on. It wants a currency union, which would mean it would keep the Bank of England as the bank of last resort, and it would have Scottish banks.
And surely that's what has to happen, no?
To be honest, it's impractical. And the reason for that is because the rest of the UK will not accept a currency union. If that's the case, then Alex Salmond of the SNP has said they can keep the pound through sterlingisation or a currency board or some mechanism of that sort. But the problem is then, I think a Scottish banking system under sterlingisation would face considerable problems. One of the problems would be that there will be no central bank to support it. So the individual banks would have to hold more capital, and that would limit their lending and mean that investors would regard them more warily. The second problem is that if everybody is using the same currency and you're a Scottish person, where would you put your money? You're much more likely to put it in a UK-based bank because you know that there's a deposit insurance scheme, an established one, a central bank backing, it's mature, you know how it works. The Scottish banking system would be a bit of a gamble. So of course there's going to be deposit flight, and that will lead to a set of quite weak and banks that find it quite hard to operate, and that's not going to be good for the economy.
Would Scotland need its own banking system? Is there not a scenario under which the big banks, Lloyds and RBS, re-register in England and keep running their Scottish businesses, fully owning them, and actually still relying on the UK government and its Bank of England support?
Yes, I think they will do that at the holding company level, and you could argue that what they'll do is if all the Scots deposit their money, their sterling money in the UK bank, they can simply recycle it back into Scotland. But I think their regulators might have a few questions about that if they're not really treating the two subsidiaries as separate. So I think it's actually going to be really quite tricky. And I think that actually Scotland, if it really wants a solid long-term banking system, is going to have to take the plunge and have a separate currency.
Well, that separate currency would take a long time to establish, and a lot of uncertainty on the way. I can see the point that it would be better to have an independent currency and independent banking system. But is there a practical way of getting there, do you think? Would there just be too much pain on the way?
I think there'd be quite a bit of pain on the way. There's inevitably be disruption. Everybody's savings, loans, mortgages would have to be redenominated in a different currency. There's no question it would be highly disruptive, and the new institutions, a new central bank, new banks themselves would have to bed down over time. People would have to come to trust them. But I don't think you can avoid that sort of pain. The good news is that a lot of smaller countries that have broken away in the past haven't really had very sophisticated financial systems. But the Scots are actually expert bankers. They've got a long history of it. The Scots founded, for example, HSBC, and have been the management cadre at the heart of that. So there's plenty of financial sophistication there. They could do it. It's just going to be more painful than the SNP would like.
But there's a risk, as you say, of currency flight, of people in Scotland saying, actually, I'd rather take all my money over the border to England. And then institutions still operating in Scotland would say, well, we can't lend at the moment because we don't have the
I think that if they had a separate currency, that problem would be diminished considerably, because if you're paid in the new currency, you can't just go over the border and deposit it in a British bank. Actually, a new currency sets a barrier between the EU and the UK, which would be very useful for those institutions.
One of the maybe the concerning aspects of all of this is the amount of pre-planning that has or hasn't been done. Do you think that if there's a yes vote, we will see panic on Friday?
I think both sides at some level have sort of almost deliberately not planned for it. That's one reason why Alex Salmond has refused to discuss the idea that there wouldn't be a currency union. I think on the UK side, certainly there's been much more of an assumption that it's not going to happen. So I think there'd be a bit of panic and certainly a lot of commotion on both sides. And I don't think that would stop, because as you went into negotiations with the SNP, for example, demanding a currency union, and that was refused, that would lead to a complete policy impasse. So I think that what we're seeing at the moment is a huge debate. That debate will just roll onwards.
John, thanks very much.